Is it recording now? Yes. Okay. Hi, students and staff. Good morning. Welcome to BDC's Flex Week lecture. I'm Mouhsine, and I'm part of the Beyond Design team, and we try to bring in a lecture during Flex Week when we have a gap. And Beyond Design Center also rolls out a subject called Collaborative Design, which some of you in third year would have done the subject, but the first year students will probably do it in 1.2 semester. So if you are in third year, you would have recalled that you had the opportunity to work collaboratively with your classmates to try and research and resolve wicked problems in the world. And they could be along the themes of humanitarian, sustainability, societal, and humanities issues, you know, like poverty and health, just to name a few. So if you're always been passionate about using your talent and ideas to design for the greater good, or wondered how you can bring your ideas into the world to benefit the community, this is the talk to listen to, because we have a very energetic social entrepreneur here, Mouhsine, who is the founder of several social enterprise and also a non-profit, which I think he will expound later. And I'm really delighted to have you and students and staff, first year, third year, and the staff would be academic and non-academic staff joining us today for this interesting talk that you will share. So a very quick background, perhaps I'll try to say more. Mouhsine is actually from Morocco, which I found very interesting and rich in culture. And because of that, I think he's also very passionate about cultures around the world. And after earning his doctorate in mechanical engineering in Rensselaer in New York, Mouhsine has worked with product design and engineering for companies like Motorola, Intel, BMW, and Boeing. And in 2006, he decided to apply his expertise to help design for social impact, you know, because when he traveled, he said he saw so many things that he could help with. So he started to register Prakti to create this social enterprise. And the good news is in his design, he has reached a lot of people, up to 500,000 people. I think he will explain that more. And regards to the Cookstoves, also he has received several awards, including the Clinton Global Initiative, Social Venture Challenge in Canada, and Royal Academy of Engineering. So as we speak, I recall he also shared that there were new orders coming in regards to the Cookstove. So that's very good news. And also he started the second social enterprise, Ablehoods, which empowers neighborhoods to create free harassment zones. And then finally now he's focusing on building DEW, which is Design Educating for the World in social impact, and also currently actively teaching in Hong Kong University. So that would be a quick mention of Serrar's interests. Besides that, I know that he's a very active person and is very passionate about life. So he goes around with his big smiles, and he loves dancing and cheesecake baking. Yes. So I hope you guys will have questions also beyond design. If you have anything to ask, okay. Thank you, Mouhsine, for being with us. You may want to share more now.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for inviting me, and it is a real pleasure for me to talk to students, to academia. I'm particularly excited to see that through my the last few years that I've been working in the sustainability field, I see that there is more and more, especially young professionals, who love what they do. They love what they are learning, what they learn, but they love to have a positive impact So I'm happy to share my experience. This is also not just for you, it's also for me. Every time I have an opportunity to talk about what I do, why and how, it's an opportunity for me to take deeper thoughts, to digest, to process and plan an even greater future. So on this, I will ask you to help me by taking notes of all the questions that will come to you during my talk. And really, it's any questions about the specific subject I'm going to be presenting, but also about a career in sustainability, about design, innovation. I'm particularly interested in design leadership, what it means for me, what I think is design should be. So I invite you take notes of any questions you may have, and we will have a discussion at the end of the talk. So I will get started. Open the share tray. Let me. Yeah. Can you see my slide?
I can see your slides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this this today talk presentation is about Prakti. Prakti is a social enterprise, and guess where it is registered? It's registered in Singapore. So we are Singaporean social enterprise, and we developed clean cookstoves. And to give you a context, or is where we fit, Prakti is one of 6 programs of DO. DO stands for Design and Education for the World. It is a non-profit design organization. And our focus is on work on program 6, no more than 6, that must have an impact, social or environmental, that must have an innovation aspect. That's just a choice where we decided to specialize, and must be scalable. So, and to do this, like right now, we have 6 different programs, and we are run by what we call a collective. These are few full-time staff and a lot of part-time staffers, and they all have a specialty, and they work on one of the programs. Prakti that I'm going to be talking about is the first and the oldest and the most mature of our 6 programs. The 2 others that are most active, where we have activities going on, there is DO EDU. This is a new form of education to teach anywhere from students to adults, to learn to teach them practical knowledge using sustainability problems, sustainability challenges, solar energy, growing your own food, rainwater harvesting, nutrition, and soil gardening. Our first launch, or our first pilot, is in the refugee camps in Bangladesh. Another of our program is Ablehoods. This is a new. It is an app. It is a social media that's centered on activating neighborhoods. Activating neighborhood by giving a way for them to communicate through collaboration in solving neighborhood challenges. We have been working on using neighborhood to solve the issue of street harassment, women's street harassment. That's, as you know, is a big problem in many parts of the world. And we have other programs, happy to talk about them later. So now back to the core of this talk, which is cookstoves. So cook stoves, you know, as you know, we all need to cook our food, most of us. And this photo is a very famous photo that's very representative of the situation for half of the world population. You need to cook your food. You don't have access to wood. You don't, you don't have access to modern energy like LPG or electricity. The only thing you have is biomass that's available around you. And actually here, even regular wood is not available. What you see in this bucket, this is actually cow dung, which is a biomass fuel, but not wood. And it makes a lot of smoke by itself. To reduce the amount of smoke, people use straw. But still, this is extremely smoky. It is an extremely high health burden for the mothers and, as you can imagine, for the rest of the family. To get a feel for the scale of the problem, this is a problem that's affecting half of the world population. The majority, if not all, sub-Saharan Africa, most of Latin America, Central America, and many parts, if not most parts, in Asia. The cost is huge, and it's not only costly for poor people, but as you can see, it is costly for the whole planet. And to go over the specific costs, so we have the health issue that I already mentioned. The cost to poor people that have to buy this fuel in many parts of the world. And I think what comes to mind first is Haiti, where people spend more on the cost of charcoal for cooking than on the food being cooked. The time when fuel is not bought, it's collected, it's time to spend collecting the fuel, and the global effect, deforestation. You have basically, to get an idea, it's when you cook with biomass, it's in average 1 kilo of biomass per person. And if it's half the world population is 3 billions, that's 3 billion kilos of wood burn every day for cooking. That's the equivalent of 10 million trees per day. Another element that's very an issue of the day is global warming. When you burn wood, not only you generate CO2, but even more critical, you generate what's called black carbon. Those are particles that are considered part of the greenhouse gases, which are extremely high impact on global warming. So at Prakti, or in the sector of clean cooking, is to make stove. And you can see moving from the traditional to a modern one that make less smoke and use less fuel. For illustration of this subject, I show you photos of our customers in different parts of the world. This is in Nepal, in Pokhara, in the slum of Nepal, and here you see our double burner stove. So you feed the wood on one side, and you can cook two pots at the same time. Very typical of cooking in many parts of the world, where you have typically rice and the gravy and the sauce. And here you have a double burner, and it has a mini adapter where you can get all the smoke out of the house. This is it's a double burner, but in many ways very different from the previous one. This is a double burner where again you see the wood and you can cook two pots at the same time, but it does not have a chimney. The reason is this is in Tamil Nadu in the south of India. It's very hot and people need the ability to move the stove depending on the time of the day, depending on the season, if it's rainy or the summer. So it must be totally portable, so it cannot have a chimney. So you that's the stove that's needed in Tamil Nadu. This stove is in Rajasthan, which is more in the northern India, and it's fascinating. Even the same country, so many differences between different parts of the country. In the north, rice is not the most important bread. Specifically, roti, naan. Roti, I would say the main one, is extremely important. And very interesting for us to realize one of the reasons they love our cook stoves is because it cooks the roti in a uniform way. Even with the traditional, you can get often the middle overburned, overcooked, and the edge maybe not cooked enough. They were so impressed that we are able to get a uniform cooking of the roti. Just to check, are we all okay? Can you still hear me and see me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Oh, great. This is a scene from a refugee camp after the earthquake in Haiti, and these are cook stove. These are charcoal cook stoves, so you may notice the difference with the previous stoves. And we found that one of the refugees, actually, he bought a stove from another family, and he used it. This is the kitchen, or a catering service. So because the stove use much less charcoal, so it's increasing their income. It's reducing their fuel expenses, and it's justified for the refugee to start a business where he's cooking for other people. Another area where we had quite an impact is school feeding programs. In many poor countries, humanitarian agencies, of course, they worry about malnutrition, and especially for kids. And one very effective way to get the right nutrition for kids is through schools. Is you deliver the food to schools, so kids come to learn, and they come also to have proper nutrition. And a big issue, but so far we supplied in Haiti and Sudan, was the fuel for cooking. And again, electricity is not an option. LPG is not an option. So biomass is an option. One innovations we had is what you see in the bottom left. It's briquettes. These briquettes are made from urban waste. It's by shredding and compressing cardboard, paper, and sawdust. So it's basically what was used as waste. And our innovation was to develop a way that this briquette can burn without being smoke bombs. And that was the sad reality before. There was the idea of making fuel from waste, but when they were used in a cook stove, they were just making too much smoke, and also they don't burn hot enough. They don't have enough power to actually cook the food. So this is, and actually what you see right here is the whole innovation, and it did wonders. With this simple device, the briquette burned extremely hot, very fast, high power, and very clean. And because of this innovation alone, we had one large order for the UN, first in Haiti, stoves for 500 schools, and later, and this was in 2011, we had an order for stoves for Sudan, and yeah, as he mentioned, after 10 years, we had a second order for schools in Sudan, which is kind of how do you say, like a bittersweet news. Sweet is that we get an order, and also people after 10 years are they, you know, of all the stoves, all the options, they preferred and wanted specifically our stove. Bitter is, you wonder, like, how come in 10 years we still have, we are sending them the same stove? Like, didn't we learn anything in 10 years to make a better, faster, lower cost stoves? We will touch on this later, but I just already want to trigger this thought about the evolution of product. And this was actually so timely, talking about this. We had this, we got the stove for, this was to Sudan, last Sunday, 45 minutes before the lockdown. The stoves are made in Chennai, and as you may heard of all the terrible situation in India, so Chennai is getting in lockdown, and it was almost, for us, it was a miracle that we were able to get the stoves for, that's for 51 schools, to get them in Chennai port just just on time before the lockdown, and they will be shipped on the 16th. So wish us luck that no last minute surprise happens before the sale. Here I want to share more of the the behind the scenes for making these stoves, and it is a true collaboration. Making cook stoves, and in many I think in the typical mind of people, organizations that wants to serve poor people. I would say sustainability in general, including, all sustainability element, and specifically when it comes to having solution for poor people. The idea is that poor people are poor, so having a poor design, I will not say poor design, having basic, quick, cheap design, cheap engineering, cheap manufacturing, cheap marketing communication is more than enough to serve their needs. And one thing I would like you to take away maybe from this talk is the reality is the opposite. When to work in poverty or even in sustainability in general require a much higher skills than what typically is needed to make progress in the commercial world. Here again, I'm happy to expand on this later. More specifically on collaboration, a lot of engineering, and yeah, in many ways, I had we joke that one of the techniques, the stove approach, is called the rocket stove. And we like to say that stoves are, it's not rocket science, it's more difficult. And actually, it is not a joke. It is true. And this is not just my own statement. And I'm talking specifically when it comes to the issue of materials and how can you have material that burn biomass and still last long enough and cheap enough. You really require very advanced knowledge about materials. When it comes to how can you burn wood, biomass, and make very minimal emissions, which is very similar to designing a jet engine or a diesel engine. You are burning fuel and you want to make less emissions. So understanding how biomass burn, how it combust, how it would make emissions is in many ways is very challenging. And here also I want to point to our collaboration and give a shout out to Imperial College London and Professor Chris Ty. They work for what's called the Center of Excellence for Computational Fluid Dynamics. And to do computational fluid dynamics simulation of cook stoves, it's requiring the same skills, tools, knowledge, experience that's used for doing the simulation for jet engines. In terms of manufacturing, it is not as it's not, again, you're making a cheap product and you need cheap tools. You still need advanced tools. What you see here is photos of different tools that we use for prototyping, and I have to make a difference to be more specific. We use very advanced and in many ways expensive tools to do the research, the development, to do the first batches, the first prototypes, because actually it give us the best value to cost ratio to get these prototypes. So the point here is that making product for poor people, you still need knowledge, access to advanced manufacturing. These are illustrations about collaborating with marketing, communication, and sales professional. And here to give a context, the challenge to promoting a clean cook stove is in many ways it's much more difficult than promoting the latest Samsung, the latest smartphone, because when you are promoting to people that have the means, there is already an established way for them to reach them. There is TV, there is all the social media, all the advertising infrastructure is ready for them, and there is one common language, education, and they have English, very common. While when you are promoting to poor people, they may not have internet, they may not have smartphone, they may not have the language. They may not even have, you can imagine, like, especially in our case, we want to convince first the cook. And when very often, which is in general a woman, in most of the developing countries we work, and also there is poverty, and even within the families there are different levels. Typically it's the man that will have access to some English or to the smartphone. So how can we reach the cooks? So it's very interesting And this is maybe what I want to communicate to young professionals, is if you like to design, if you like to innovate, there is everything there in the sustainability world. There is no, everything is there to innovate. Here, it's kind of, maybe you notice, kind of interesting. You see some white people in promoting, in this case, she's French, he's Dutch, and we are promoting our cook stoves in India. And you say, like, why? Well, it just turns out to be very entertaining. And I explain, the white lady, French, she speaks Tamil. And not, she's fluent in Tamil, but she speaks Tamil like the gangsters in in some part of India. So like, you know, this really tough language. And we put the video out, and even without promotion, there was like over 100,000 views of it. People just all in the village, the area where we worked, I would say every woman there saw that video. They all want to see her, to see a white woman speaking Tamil like a gangster. On the other side, it was, he's a Dutch friend, and he speaks Hindi. And there it was more, you have a man talking about cooking in our language. So they were very similar, very popular videos. And, you know, it's we use them, it's edutainment. We promote the cook stove, and also we talk about nutrition, about local food. Yeah, they were great, and I look forward to continue this kind of videos. Now I will talk more about, touch on some specific learnings we had going through this journey, and also hopefully generate questions, ideas, thoughts to discuss later. So the clients and their priorities. And often when you see a poor person, you have in mind what are the priorities for that poor person. And the key point here is to not assume, do the proper research. And more as an anecdote, this is actually our first customer in Pokhara in Nepal. And 1 year after she was using the stove, one of our staff did the follow-up and asked her, what do you like about the stove? So she said, I'm now able to get a better pay. And you may wonder, what do you mean you get a better pay? This lady, she's a day laborer. So every morning she goes to the, you know, there is a specific corner in Pokhara where employers, you know, they can be typically farmers or construction managers. They come hire labor for the day. So for her, because the stove, there was a chimney, so all the smoke would go out of the house. So she felt that her clothes, that she was not smelling smoke. And for her, when she is negotiating with this employer, it's very important for her that the employer doesn't realize that she is cooking with wood at home. Therefore, she was poor. Therefore, she would take any salary. So this is very important to know for us as a product developer. Like, why people would be buying our stove or not. And 6 months later, her comment that, oh, she likes it because her hands are softer. Really, when I got that it was an email, I was in India then, I got it from the colleague in Nepal. I was kind of a little annoyed, like, come on, we hired you there, because you speak Nepali and you should be able to translate things correctly. Why would our stove make her hand softer? Well, the reason is because I was the one totally wrong, and the translation was correct. The reason why her hands were softer is because in Nepal, after cooking, it's very important that you clean everything. And you can see this is during the cooking, and you can see only a little bit of mess. After the cooking, the houses in Nepal are spotless, including removing all the tar, the blackening tar under the pots. So with the traditional stove, the tar is thick and very sticky and very very difficult to remove. And you need to use soap and this how you call it, this special cloth, rough cloth, to remove the tar. With our stove, and what they loved is that because the combustion is more efficient, there is less tar under the pot, and it's much easier, faster to clean. And here more for kind of a design specs. As a stove developer, when we wear the hat that we are here for impact, we are going to look into the priorities from 1 to 7. We want less smoke, less fuel, easy to use, faster, cleaner pot, cleaner stove, cleaner kitchen, a clean cook. Not only about the example I gave about the smell, but also they hate it when their clothes are getting dirty. And here maybe a side note, poor people are still, of course, humans, and they have emotions and they have their needs, and we should never forget that. And the last one is cost of stove. I struggled with this, while for the user, I can tell you it's the opposite. You go from the most important is the cost of the stove, etc. Having less smoke is the last of their priorities. And I have to say I struggled with, and I still do, with this, especially with number 7, the cost of stove. Because really, when you look at it as an actual cost, the cost, it's a one-time cost. You buy the stove and then you use the stove for 5 years. So the daily cost is very small. This is my views as somebody who had the opportunity, who can afford that. And I have some reserve, and I went maybe to the best, or not to the best. I went to school. I interacted with people. I know the value of. I understand investment, and I have the safety, the security to invest in the cost of the. When you are poor, no, you don't have that, and also you have so much, only some limited amount of money, and you want to buy a stove, but you want also to buy a smartphone, you want to buy jewelry, very important. So there is all this, I struggled, but now I really embrace. We want to, yes, good, etc., but it has to be cheap. It has to be super cheap. And we have been, we are very excited about that, about this aspect of being very cheap. And this represents our latest design approach to Cookstove, that we really feel not only is going to be a major game changer for us, and I would say even for the sector. And it is, we are not making a stove anymore. We are making a module, an air tray that make the stove much more efficient. Yeah, so first, if you can see on the top left corner is the air tray. You see that stainless steel part. So that stainless steel part is inserted inside the mud stove. Are we still there? Everything okay?
Yes.
Great. So this is, as you will see later, we feel it's very important to track the evolution of our product as a stove designer, stove developer. And this represents our story from 2010 to 2018 when we developed the new Prakti Air. And by the way, the Prakti Air is not launched yet. We can talk about it later, but it is designed, certified, even we have a patent. And where you can see the evolution, we are using less and less fuel, but we had a huge improvement in emissions. We are making much less smoke. And finally, we are able to reduce the cost significantly. This is, I think, for us as not on, I would say, for both as a design product development company and also as a social enterprise, is to track how we are doing over the year. Again, this is very important, and it might be basic for most of, I would say, people working in the commercial world, even in the sustainability world. Sorry, people in the commercial world are familiar with this tracking, the value on cost. Unfortunately, in the sustainability world, it is not the case. We are not tracking this, what we are represent as the value by the cost over the year. By value, value first is the value in the eye of the customer, of the user. And it can be like, you saw before those 7 goals or priorities. It's all of those 7 with the right weight for each one, divided by the cost. And very often you can have something that's really good, but too expensive. It will not work. Or it can be very cheap, but low performance. That will not work. I will revisit that tracking value, the cost at the end, because I see it as an important, valuable discussion point for after the presentation. Next on collaboration, and this is beyond the collaboration within the different professionals that are working in the same organization. Is collaboration across organizations, and I see it as a big, not a problem, but as a big opportunity in the sustainability sector. Collaborations are rare and very often superficial. But what I mean by collaboration, let's say I am a stove. I take the example of doing cookstoves, who are the different players in such a sustainability challenge. You can think of the stove developers, somebody like us. You can think of implementers, distributors, and they can be other social enterprises or NGOs. You can think of academia. There are many academic projects whose whole purpose or goal, or the reason why they get the funding, is to work on making better access, having solutions for the clean cook stoves. And in my experience, the collaboration between these different entities is terrible. Yeah, to be upfront, there is a real lack of realizing that none of these entities will solve the problem alone. And where it comes, and basically you have distributors that or NGOs that they think I do stoves and I don't need anybody. I just, at the end, I go somewhere and buy my cook stoves from this manufacturer and go ahead. It's terribly wrong. You need to have a tight collaboration. And by saying a tight collaboration, it's all actually start from the funding. Talking about money is not fun, but it is a critical, the glue, what energize. There is a limited pocket of funding, and then you have the social enterprises, the distributor, the NGOs, the academias, all pitching, using this funding to do their activities. Unfortunately, it's extremely rare to have a cross collaboration. When you have a distributor trying to make a cook stoves without having the proper partnership with a stove developer manufacturer, it doesn't work as well. When you have a project in academia where they say, okay, we are going to solve the cook stove project, and they see that stove manufacturers, NGOs, distributors they come at the end just to receive the solution. It does not work. So this is maybe a red flag, at least in our sector, that the collaboration has been extremely superficial, and we need to find ways to have the collaboration to be more strategic. And I'm using the word here. It's not collaboration. We need strategic partnerships between these different players in the sector. The sustainability or the health. What is the health of the sustainability sectors? And here maybe kind of to compare the commercial world with the sustainability world. In the commercial world, the commercial sector is very lucky, not because there is the funding, but also there is a very simple, clear, well-defined health index. If you make a profit, you survive and you thrive. If you don't, you go bankrupt and you are fired. In the sustainability sector, there is not the profit, or is something that comes much later. We are even have to refer to the word sustainability. Usually is because we are in the early stages and it is not profitable in the short term. So to justify working on it, we say it's about sustainability, meaning it's okay, we don't make a profit the first year or second year. We're looking in the longer term, and we have to be patient because we are doing good. Yes, we have to be patient because we are doing good. But how are you tracking the health of your sector? And first, a personal story before I talk about Cookstove. This is one of, it is a solar light. And it was developed for, the sector of the solar light for developing countries. And I bought this solar light in 2009. And I totally loved it. And I used it for 8 years. And I was really using it every day for many for many reasons. I had electricity in my home, but still it was very convenient for me to use. And after 8 years, well, you know, the battery died and needed to be replaced. And I said, oh, I love this so much, I will go and buy the new model of this product. I went, and what you see in 2017 was the other model, and they were exactly the same. This can mean two things: that this product is so good that there was nothing to improve. I would argue against that this argument. We are in the solar light sector. The goal is to reach the whole planet. There are still billions of people still using kerosene for light, and they need solar light. And having the same product after 8 years means that the solar light are failing as development, as a humanitarian sector. I know it's a harsh word, but I think it's really important that even in the sustainability sector, that we don't always try to be super nice. We need to make progress. We need to make progress, and we need to make it faster. And there is no excuse, because there is ways to do things better. And then go back to even our sector, the sector where I've been involved for the last 12 years. And I might be extrapolating, generalizing, but still, you look at the cook stove that are mostly used in the world 10 years ago, and what's used today. It's the majority is the same thing. And imagine this is after 10 years. And I would say after even financially, maybe you know, I would say somewhere between $100 million minimum up to maybe $500 million were spent to dynamize the sustainability sector. And the question, the reality, the question is, why aren't we the value? Why are we still have the same products? And here I like to suggest this scalability threshold, which is for this threshold where you see in the X as the year, in the Y it is the value divided by the cost. So any solution that's under specific threshold that varies based on the sector, those solutions will never scale. And if we go past the threshold, not only it will scale, it becomes commercially viable, and we don't even need to call it a sustainability driven project. It's a commercial, and it should go on. And the call or the question for us to discuss next is, what can we do to make the cost, the value to cost of the different sustainability solutions we have cross that threshold faster than what it is now. So with this, I conclude my talk. And before starting the Q&A and discussion, I invite you both to ask questions, and also there is room, there is space to discuss is where are there opportunities, or how can we accelerate innovation in the sustainability sector? How can we increase collaboration within the sustainability sector? and also for you, for this audience coming from academia, what are your thoughts on having academia collaborate, have more bigger impact in the sustainability sector? Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions. And maybe first I turn off the sharing.
No, don't turn off. Maybe you can go to the question page.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Could you say that again?
I was thinking you can leave the question, the Q&A slide.
Oh.
That will prompt some thoughts.
Sure. Oops.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very insightful. And I think we already have some questions regards to what you have presented. Yeah. So maybe I can start to, we can start to read out some of the questions. First of all, I think there were a few questions on the sustainable approach. So Alvin asked about instead of charcoal wood, which does produce carbon monoxide, how is that, that much better? That's one question. And relating to that is also the question of biomass versus using solar, because with solar energy, there's less pollution, and maybe some of the countries are really hot and full of sunshine. So was there a discussion at some point when you were building your cook stove that solar would have been a better option, for example?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And to tell you, like, my story is when I started in cooking, I started with solar only. And I spent almost 1 year and $50,000 to learn that it does not work. So, and this is, and everything to take within a context. There is more having a solution that a product that scale or does not scale. There are many perspectives, many elements. So for instance, with solar, the first, it's several issues. The first is the, with solar, you can either do like photovoltaic, and and you charge a battery, but cooking require really high power, at least more than 1 kilowatt. And to get 1 kilowatt from solar, it will take you at least maybe I don't know, $1,000 just to give. So it's way too expensive. The other option is to use what's called thermal solar, which is either by concentrators, but it is still to have something reliable, and it's at least maybe $200, $400 for something reliable. And also with the you cannot guarantee that your food will be cooked every day. If there is clouds, if there is if you are cooking outside and some animals come and knock the stove out. And also something very practical, when you are cooking it's very deep in people's culture habits. For instance, in like we worked in solar in cooking in Morocco, and people start to cook at 11 a.m. Okay, where you go in the market, you do, but if you are cooking with solar, you need to have all your vegetables prepared, cut, and in the oven by 9 a.m. So it is the solar has too many technical constraints to be a solution that can be really scaled. And on the other question about how we promote charcoal versus solar or other, I would say from our we want to take a very practical solution, and we want to have a solution that have an impact. So for instance, with the like in Haiti, there is no other solution. This is not, we're not going after maybe 5 families or 10 families and we give them a solution. We are looking to have a solution that will affect the 1 million people. So it has to be extremely low cost, and it has to use the fuel that's already available, and the fuel that's already available is biomass. So so those are the dimensions that we look at when deciding which product we promote. And maybe just to answer more, like if we are, let's say, somebody invite us to bring a cook stove, let's say actually it's happening in Calcutta, in the slums in Calcutta, and they are asking, oh, we need, and actually it happened yesterday, they say we need people in the slums.
Mouhsine, your audio is off.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think you have to repeat when you were talking about the Calcutta. Something happened there.
Okay, great. Yes. So that was an email yesterday, a friend of a friend that works in the slums in Calcutta, and asking potential for having Prakti biomass cook stoves in the slums. So for us, like the first question was that, are you sure that there is no, the option of using electricity is not possible? So yeah, so our solutions, or at least biomass, we reserve them to places where biomass is the only option, the only viable option.
Right. So I understand that really there is a need for consistency and also working from ground level where there's nothing available. That's why the current stores is designed for that market and audience and people's needs. Yes. And some other questions that came in was, this is an interesting one, metal versus mud stove, because I guess metal can create more heat. So is that a problem? And because the mud stove is mentioned since in India, especially, there's a popular way of using mud to build around, things to be used, or even the house. I've actually been inside a Kaudang village, hut. So it's interesting that they say it's very cooling and stuff like that. So was there a way to work around that with mud? Mouhsine, your mic is off again.
It is strange. I'm not touching the mic, and it is turning off by itself. So let's, yeah, I'll be careful. I'll keep an eye on it. So mud versus metal. This is at the core on like the design and engineering side. Mud is great that it doesn't keep heat outside. When you touch it from the outside, this doesn't get too hot. But it has two, and it's very cheap, and it's local material. This is all the advantages. It has these advantages, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, but based on the situation, you use the one or the other. The disadvantage of mud is that it has a very high thermal capacity. So when you are cooking, there is more of the energy that's coming from the wood that's absorbed in the mud. So it is a heat sink, it is a heat loss. And very often, like if you have a mud stove, let's say you have a mud stove and you want to cook rice for a family of 5. So you have maybe maybe 2 kilos of rice and water that you are cooking, and you have 50 kilos of mud. So when you are cooking, when you are burning the wood, you have most of the energy actually going to the mud. So this is kind of the basic trade-offs. There is something also, an advantage of metal is that, well, disadvantage, it's expensive, it's not local material, but the advantage is that you can, it's very controlled. You can make many of them, easy to transport, easy to install. Overall, for our approach to maximizing our impact is, first, we do metal because we can control we can control the quality. It's easy to distribute. But as the design is proven, as the market awareness about the technology is there, we migrate to more local material like mud, ceramic. There's also some very interesting what's called compressed earth blocks. Yeah, so these are the trade-offs, the decisions, the choices we have as we are developing the product. Oh, and now I cannot hear you.
Oh, it's the efficiency then.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Some other questions that came in is regards to, I think, the collaboration aspect. For example, challenges that you face when you collaborate global. How do you even find these counterparts to work with? How do you find them to, to come together and do your manufacturing or parts? And then relating to the partnership, another question is, if during COVID, has this caused difficulty, and how do you manage to adapt these changes in your business? Yes.
Yeah. So I was like I think in challenges in partnership and collaboration, I would say maybe first kind of just on a personal, on a personal experience, I find it still challenging. Like I am driven by impact. And I'm not saying to many it like in a way that, oh, I am better, or it's just that's what I like. And I think it's very unusual in many ways. So there are different organizations or people that are driven first by commercial, by profit, by commercial. So I find it's a little bit sometimes challenging to explain the why and how. It's maybe more a challenge on outside people like us that are driven by impact. How can we speak the language of, we talk about scalability, about revenues, costs. How can we speak the vocabulary of the commercial world, but still communicate that we are driven by impact, And this is the frame where we're looking for the collaboration. I think more specific to get more collaboration happening, it starts with the funders. I think funders, first as a general statement, funders need also a lot of education. You know, how to be a better funder. And I can, I think there's news to I am a funder, therefore I know everything. And for instance, in the funders, they should stop funding one entity to do everything. Like if a funder is looking to do to support launching new sustainability project, they should require that it's not just one entity, but they should require that there will be academia, there will be a distributor, there will be a manufacturer, there will be a stove developer, and have them all under one umbrella. So I think that would be a much more effective way to get the collaboration happening. Then it's not an option, it's a requirement.
I understand what you mean by that. Most of so far in the past, the social entrepreneurship funding, they just expect you to do everything, and they just say, okay, maybe we have some funds, you figure out everything from scratch. Yeah. So what you're saying is if they have already a good structure of collaboration that would really help push forward. And so how, in terms of funding, how do you manage to fund the Prakti evolution? Who do you get funding from? And since funding is required to pay for salary, logistics, and maybe even the losses from research, yes?
Yeah, I would say like in our case, it's all, I would say we have maybe four different sources of revenues. The one that gets us more excited is that when we sell a product, there is a margin from the product. It is not a profit, I would say, yet, but when we sell any cook stove, there is a margin for us. But that's very far from covering all our expenses. We win prizes from time to time. There is some innovation prizes that we win that fund part of our. We do consulting. There are many organizations that identify us for having some expertise related to cook stoves outside our regular, product line. So we give, we get hired for our expertise. Yeah, so it is a balance between these different, and I would say the fourth one, and maybe yes, was some personal funding. We have also, I think one of our biggest asset is our volunteers. We have a lot of I would say like professional, highly skilled individuals that contribute to our work, and they are happy to do it without expecting to be paid. So yeah, this is how we are run. I say so far we didn't make a profit, but we don't owe money to anybody. So we.
I always assume that you have a fund investor actually to even start this. Did you have to dig into your personal fundings for this?
Yes, you know, like I did at the beginning. In the first 2 years, it was a personal funding. I think like any startup, when you start, you don't have anything to prove to raise the funding or even to get the orders. So I self-funded for the first 2 years, and then yeah, then we are okay. Sorry?
That is good news.
Oh, yes.
Some questions I see here says, let me see.
I saw there was a question about COVID, how it is impacting us.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would say in many ways we are very lucky because of the structure of how we work. We are primarily stove developers. So our biggest asset or expenses, you know, it's the intellectual work, is the R&D, and there is some tooling that we have to pay for, but we subcontract the production. So it didn't affect us much, but I guess even our subcontractor, the manufacturing is okay. And for distribution, we rely on distributors. So I would say it has not been a major impact so far.
There's one question on how long does it take for coming up with the concept of the cook stove to making them actually functional and ready for use. Oh, your mic is off.
Yes, on our, it goes from having a concept to having a stove using the kitchen. I tell you what's the current status is 1 day. From the way we work is that we have a rapid prototyping lab. And when I say rapid prototyping, it is not 3D printers. It is a sheet metal work. So in our process is to come up with a new concept during the day, and next morning put it in the hand of our cook. Part of our staff, and I can argue is the most important staff at Prakti, is a cook. So the cook would use the stove for testing. This ability to be able to prototype and in 1 day, that took us 10 years to do that. And it is getting the right tools and developing the knowledge, the experience on how to use these tools to make this prototype. And it is also our staff in charge, the maker who makes this stuff, who has been making them for 4 years. So that's the scenario where we operate.
Wonderful. That means in the past, when you started off, it was much longer, the duration. What was it?
In the past, it would take maybe up to maybe 1 month. and maybe to connect this answer to learning about the design process. Even for us, like for the last 10 years, I like to believe that we are a much better designer, and not just from learning by ourselves, but it's really being exposed to new modern design methodologies, design process. This is beyond, the design thinking, and specifically we believe that what's some called rapid prototyping, this process where you make a prototype not being constrained by having a specific goal, but to make a prototype being constrained by time. It's basically with our designers, engineers, it's not go and make me a stove that can do this. That's the traditional approach, which is wrong. I'm extrapolating a little bit just to make the point. The way we work is we go to our designers, engineers, technicians, and we tell them, you have 1 day to make a prototype. And it really doesn't matter if it is perfect or if it is a bad prototype. So I just wanted to highlight here that the modern design methodologies, they really work.
I think it will link to the next question, which is how do you manage your expectations with the reality of the solution? Because as we know, we design something in our mind, but when we apply or we start to work with a bigger team, it does not come to reality. So
yeah, I think
like this.
Oh, I would say, I think like the first, to manage expectations and even to make things happen is, I think first is to be sure that I'm really doing everything I could. And even if it's not comfortable, like I'm committing to a goal, I do everything I could. I see one of the elements, and I think it's more like observing, learning from others, is the question of humility. And it's beyond humility just to be the nice person that everybody loves. Humility is a very important tool to come up with the good solutions. Not only for within oneself, like if I want to design something, I don't come to it that, oh, I am this amazing engineer. I had the highest grade at school. Therefore, I am the best to design a solution. That's wrong. I think it's really to take that humility that, oh, I'm still learning. I may not have all the answers, and really open to question our assumptions. Very important to make the best design, and even within questioning the assumptions, very often our solutions are not as good as they could be because we have a lot of assumptions. This is where, even as a designer, be humble enough to say, I don't have the best solution. Let me build it. Let me test it and learn from it. So in the sense of humility, the second element of humility would be outside. Like be aware that the solution is maybe with the user. It's not always with the user. We don't want to the pendulum to go to the other side, that, oh, the users, they know everything. Let's just ask them and they will tell us what to do. No, it is both parties. And finally, I think the humility to deal with other colleagues, to not have to really believe that other colleagues have the potential, have the skills to collaborate and to build this solution.
Remaining open and also focus on the main objective is to create a rapid product for the need.
Yes, yeah. I feel there is also another element. Be aware that it may take time. It may take time. Yes, be patient, that it may take few iterations to get the best solution.
We have one interesting question in regards to social media affecting, or can we, because social media is so useful, although it's not our audience to sell to reach out with the cook stove, but have you used the social media to target advertising to richer countries, to raise awareness, to raise funding? I think like GoFundMe is very popular now. Actually, have you tapped into that area yourself? Your mic is muted again. I don't know why. Yeah.
We did first, absolutely. I think because our field is resources limited, so we have to look even deeper in any opportunity to help us get the message and all. And to tell you our experience, like we were surprised with those videos that, the cooking shows, they were put in Facebook, and it worked amazing on how it get promoted. And I think there is definitely room to take advantage of that even more. What I see a very good opportunity is also the online, platform to sell things, like people buying from Amazon and similar. I believe there is a lot of potential for that. I'm not trying or wanting Amazon to make even more money, but I think this method of distribution is much more straightforward, and we like to see expand more. But on crowdfunding, it's very interesting. We had good success. We did some crowdfunding. It was in France, and we raised crowdfunding like 15,000 pounds, 15,000 euros, which was great. But in general, what we see is even to raise funds, you need to invest time. You need to invest resources. Like, to give it an idea, like if you want to raise, I don't know, like $100,000, you need to invest first $10,000. And otherwise it will just take a long time, and it will not be that successful. So you need money to raise money. And actually this point led me to, so, what to do about it when you need money to raise money. And kind of connected to the previous point about managing expectations. Or in sustainability sectors, because we have less resources, less money, we need more collaborators. We need more co-founders. And it's not just to compensate for the lack of funds, but it's also to complement each other's in terms of skills. Like, I will never be able to succeed in this my project alone, because I know I am a terrible in communicator, believe it or not. I know what are my strengths, and I know that I have a lot of weaknesses. So part of managing expectations, or to succeed, is make it a very high priority to find co-founders that can complement your skills, and to tie it to the question of raising funding, like to get to do crowdfunding. We need 10,000. If I had to do it, like we need $10,000 with a communication specialist. If we don't have that, then maybe we need to collaborate. We need to have a co-founder that specializes in social media communication, and then would complement the skills and compensate for those seed funding.
Yes. The keyword is collaboration, huh? That's why I think actually collaboration with academia and passionate designers, students, all of us, because we, as designers, actually we have the power, we have the knowledge to actually design for a greater good. That's why I think when for third-year students, actually in collaborative design, we have worked. One of the project was actually with Dew Labs, and Dew Labs client was actually Mouhsine Serrar here. So, and I think in Dew Labs also you touch on a lot of things like sustainable food, hydroponics, education for the community. So that's why I think students, if you have any ideas, questions, and you're passionate to collaborate with Dew and Mouhsine, do drop him an email, yeah? And also you can drop me an email if you can't find his email. So I think that, let's see if we have any other questions. There was a funny questions about cow dung, I think. Because Kristen is asking that since we are no longer using cow dung for the burning process, would there be too much surplus of the manure? Would there be another problem? That was a funny question. I think maybe in India, cow dung is so popular for many things. There will not be an issue, yes?
Yeah, it is not an issue, and it does not smell, I promise. It is totally dried. It has to be dried to burn. And actually, believe me, it doesn't. I have a cow dung experience in Singapore. Not cooking. I was talking to a colleague. I was in Singapore, and I was in a Starbucks talking to a colleague in India about, and we were doing some testing. And I was asking, like, what was the humidity of cow dung? Did you test how dry? And I can see people sitting next to me at the Starbucks. They really give me that look, like, what is this guy talking about? So.
Okay, I think, let me see, there's one more. Okay, I think no more questions so far. And actually some of the, one lecturer has just joined. I think it's because, some of the second year students had a project briefing, so they had to miss our session. But students, do you have any questions? Don't be shy to ask, because we have reached the end of the talk, and I do not want to hold on to the time too long. Some of you are very hungry after seeing all the cook stove with the food. We can close the session if there's no more questions, but I've already left 2 links. Dew Labs and as well as Mouhsine's LinkedIn profile. You can definitely reach out and learn more. Be curious, and please forward any ideas. You can reach out to him through me also. Thank you so much, Mouhsine. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the students, for coming. We hope you are our designer of the future. So we are passionate about you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.